Welcome to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband, a modern day love story. I am Remi Stern. I'm a relationship coach, and we are going to talk all things relationships, from being single to dating to being engaged, married. Who you marry is the most important decision you will ever make.
If you're looking for a wife, which is a beautiful thing to do, the best thing to do is to choose wisely.
If you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Everybody else has it right. Then you are in the right place, because trust me, nobody knows what they're doing. I'm so excited. Please hop right in, listen to this episode, listen to this series, and we are so excited that you are joining us here. Welcome, guys, to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband. This episode is a little different. It is the first solo episode where I tell you guys really how I got here and how I built this life and how I built my business and met my husband. And I really just connect the dots for you guys and hopefully give you some great advice on how you can create the life of your dreams. So hop right in, listen, and enjoy. Okay, guys, welcome back to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband. Today's episode is a little bit different. It's just me, as you can see. I've gotten a lot of questions from people about how I ended up here, how I built this business and this life, and having my husband and my daughter, and just really what it took to get here. And of course, I didn't draw it up and make a magical thing, but I put in a lot of beautiful, powerful work to be able to live a life that, quite frankly, I love living. Doesn't mean there's not the ups and downs, and we all have that, and I have a lot of work left to do, but I want to share with you my story of how I got here. Hopefully you can learn something from it, of what to do, what not to do, all of the above. So please enjoy, and I hope you get something out of it. So we're going to go way back. We're going to start where I grew up in Los Angeles, California, Pacific Palisades to be exact. And I grew up in this community that always put emphasis on spirituality and talking about your emotions and living your best life. I remember when I was in elementary school, I went to this outdoors spiritual awakening trip. It was just always something that was a topic of conversation in my life. And in elementary school, we actually had a class once a week for an hour. We had a class called counsel, or a session called counsel, and we'd sit in a circle with a talking piece. It would go around and we'd talk about our emotions. What kindergartners talked about with their emotions, I don't know. I would love to find out. But literally from that early of an age, that was how I was built up, what was ingrained in me. And it went all the way into high school. I went to this amazing school called Crossroads in Santa Monica. And at Crossroads, we took this to the next level. We had a class once a week that you had to attend. This wasn't a fun thing. This was for credit. And for 2 hours, you would sit, it was called life skills, and you would sit around a circle with your peers and you would talk about your emotions and you would talk about what was going well, what wasn't. You would learn about active listening and how to communicate. And it really was a way to set you up for success in life, which unfortunately, we probably don't teach quite enough in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. So we had this class called Life Skills, and I was always so interested, not only in myself and my own emotions and working through them, but really listening to other people and their challenges, what they were going through. And I always had a sense, even in the elementary school years, where I could read the room and understand where people were at and what they needed. It was a sense that I had, and this worked in my benefit, having the sense when I was young, and the fact that I could walk in a room and kind of mold myself to what was needed in that room, right? If it was a lower energy room, I could say, great, maybe they need some fun energy. If it was a room that was highly anxious, maybe I'd be super calm. I could kind of read the room, for lack of a better term, and provide what the room needed. That being said, this also fell into one of my not so great traits, because I would not think about my own needs and emotions in a situation. And I knew that if everybody needed this, I what I thought must be this way. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I took, and this is going to be a theme of this conversation, I took one of my best traits that I was given. It's not mine. I didn't write it up and create it for me. The universe, or however you want to call it, gives you a certain amount of traits. Every trait is inherently good, but we do tend to label them as our good traits and our bad traits and our neutral traits, sure. But I took my good trait, which was reading a room, being able to be in tune with my emotions, with other people's emotions, knowing how to elevate it and shift it, as well as what I perceive to be my not so good trait, which was, these are the very easy terms to say it, people pleaser, pushover, one after that. These are things that when I was young, if you told me I was that, it would hurt me so much because I saw it as bad. Now, sometimes I fall into not being, sometimes I'm still a people pleaser, but one, I've improved it a lot and I use it to actually serve me and to serve others. So again, going back, this was all very much so ingrained in me, which I think in each person's life, if you pay attention, you will see the challenges you've been through, the gifts you've been given, the things that lift you up, the things that make you feel good. If you start to pay attention, it is very clear what your purpose is and how to get there. So again, this is my story of what challenges I went through, what was clear to me that I was good at, and what I needed to do to achieve this. And this also came up for me a lot in family dynamics, which is a place for many people of love and joy and maybe obstacles and challenges and all of the above. And I lived in a very happy home with a lot of love, a really, really, really sweet, happy childhood. And with that, I also knew that things weren't perfect. So newsflash, to little Remi, like things weren't perfect. And so I also used my trait in my house to make sure that things moved and looked the way that I wanted it to, which was with harmony and peace. So again, taking this trait that felt like it was a burden when I was young and carrying it through my life, which of course now leads me into college. I went to Boston University, and it's so fun to look back and see the dots connecting because I like to think of it now as almost like these little angels that come into your life that kind of sway you this way, sway you that way. And you don't even realize these little decisions make such massive changes in your life, but it is so clear what path I was taken down. So I end up at Boston University with all of this incredible knowledge about spirituality, also knowledge about things definitely not being perfect in my home, which your home is the foundation of your life for the most part. So that can be extremely uncomfortable, and it was. And I arrived to Boston University, and right as I'm leaving, my parents sit me and my sister down and say, we are splitting up, which for me was the most painful thing that could have ever happened. And I'm entering this new life and this new world. And I didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, I'm Remi, nice to meet you. My life just crumbled and burned. So I was learning how to like hold this in, but talk about it. And it was just a big transition in my life at the time. And that was when I found Judaism, which has been a huge driving factor for the words and the practices and the foundation of my spirituality. And I felt like I had enough of it. I arrived to college. I knew nothing about Judaism. I didn't know what the word Shabbat was. I didn't know what the word kosher was. My family didn't do it. We did a lot more Christmas stuff and Easter stuff than anything else, and which I still love and adore and is part of my makeup, my DNA. But Judaism never crossed my mind, and my family has a whole story as to why it didn't, and I respect it and I love it just the way it is. And this rabbi had this program at BU where they would pay you $500 on a Tuesday night to sit and listen to a rabbi talk about Judaism. My friends said they were doing it with the frat boys. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Like, I don't think on a Tuesday night I want to hear a rabbi speak. They're like, what are you talking about? You'll get $500. Just like do it. So lo and behold, I show up and I'm like, well, like dragging myself to the first class. And he starts speaking and my eyes grow super wide and I'm enthralled. And I'm like, this just makes perfect sense. This is everything that I was taught with a different depth to it, a different knowledge. And it was so real. And it almost felt like I was just relearning everything, but making the pieces fit together in such a beautiful way. So from that day on, I was the first to arrive to class and I was the last to leave. And then once the class was over and I took my $500 check, I met with the rabbi once a week. And I had always gone to therapy. And it's very important, obviously, as you can hear me speak, to have a place to sit and to talk about your emotions. It's super important. It is terrible to hold it in and to not process things. That being said, I found my own challenges with specifically therapy, as to why I am now a life coach that I'm happy to describe. So I'd been going to therapy for a very long time, doing my spiritual work. And I meet this rabbi who is an incredible man. We're going to have him on soon. And he just starts to lead my life into a way that made sense. And for lack of a better terms, he took where I was at and he recognized where I wanted to go. And he saw what I needed to do to get there. So where I was at the time in college, arriving, parents splitting up, was confused and lost and a little broken, but open and excited. Those were the best years ever. So on top of it being very painful and sad, it was also, I was exploring my life, what was the possibilities, new communities, new cultures. I was learning so much. My years at BU were so incredible and life-changing. And the role that he played in my life was really my life coach. And I didn't realize it at the time, but he said, these are the things that you feel uncomfortable about, insecure, like marriage, like the bigger questions, how to live the life you want to live. And he started to shape me and give me answers and give me advice and tell me to do little things to shift the way I viewed things and shift the way I acted. And through that, it really took me step by step by step through a time that you are somewhat, living on your own for the first time, meeting new people from different places. He just was able to really shape that experience. And so after this incredible experience with this rabbi, I always thought, I want to do something like this. Not that I was going to be a rabbi or a rebbitzin. I ended up going to study in Jerusalem for a little bit to further my knowledge on it. But I knew that I would love to do something that would help someone shape their life. I didn't know what it looked like at the time. I studied psychology in college and I was like, am I going to be a therapist? But it always was just inside of me that I wanted to help people live their best life. So going through college, obviously a million fun things happened and I'm going to apply to a job. And it's one of those things that we go to many years of school to go to a job, and I studied advertising at the School of Communications. Did I do anything with it? Probably not. But you can switch a job any chance you want to. Any chance that you get to switch a job, you can hop around. What I find the most fascinating is we learn nothing, for the most part, about relationships, circling back to that. And who you marry is a big decision because you're hopefully not just going to switch your marriage right after if you don't love it. Jobs, you can switch. So at the end of college, when it comes to the point of deciding what I'm going to do after college, I hear about in the back of my mind, and it was another one of those moments that I remember how I heard about it, and it could not be more random, but also shaped my life. And just one of those like angel moments where something just drops a little piece of information into your life. And I heard about this company, WeWork, and I saw Adam Newman, this Israeli guy who says, I am elevating the world. And I said, yes, you are. And I am joining you. And that's when I decided in that moment that I must work for this company and put smiles on people's faces all day long. So instead of just going and applying on LinkedIn, I decided, why would I do that? Let me go find a WeWork in Boston. So I pack a bag by myself one day. I go down to Seaport and I find a WeWork. And I go up and I walk in and I say, hi, my name's Remi and I want to work for WeWork. And they're like, okay, hello. And I said, is there any way I could just like shadow one of you guys for the day and help out? They said, you know, it's so funny you ask. We actually need some hands on deck. Will you hop behind the desk and start checking people in and doing stuff? And I was like, okay, sounds good. So I spent, say, an hour or so behind the desk, checking packages, doing like the silly work. But in retrospect, it probably wasn't allowed what they did after I worked at WeWork and realized that there was much more strict rules in that. So I ended up working there. And immediately when I was done, they put me in contact with the head of recruiting for community, which were the people who ran the WeWork buildings. And at this point in WeWork's career, there were about probably 3,000, maybe 4,000 employees. By the height of it while I was working there, I think there were about 20,000 employees. So it grew quite a lot. And they put me in contact with him. And after a few interviews, I got the job. So the reason I tell you that story is because I am of the belief if you want something to happen and you put your mind to it, it is almost inevitable that you can make it happen. And I knew that one of my strong suits was talking to people and showing my face and reading the room and making things happen. So I went and I did it. I didn't sit back and want the universe to make it happen for me. There is a lot of divine timing with things and trusting the universe and knowing the universe will bring you something at the perfect time. But there is an amount of action that must be taken. And if you know yourself well enough, these are great things to do, and you know what your strengths are, and you know what your weaknesses are, you can actually turn your weaknesses into strengths and then emphasize your strengths even more to achieve anything you want. And that's kind of just been the trajectory from then on. And of course, there's been ups and downs. So continuing on to my journey at WeWork, at first, I fell in love with working at the company. It was new, it was on the rise. I loved Adam Newman's philosophy and bringing people together and making their day-to-day happy. Unfortunately, it was a new company. It's a startup. Startup culture is very difficult. And the employee experience as a community ended up not being what they said, which is okay. It happens. No, no hard feelings. WeWork. It was a great time spent there. But actually, my first day of work, this is a fun story, was at something that they used to call summer camp. If you haven't watched the shows, they're pretty accurate, so go watch them. So summer camp of WeWork was an opportunity for adults to just go and have a lot of fun like children at summer camp with a little bit of alcohol. I actually remember they would wake us up with rosé bottles. I didn't partake because I didn't love the idea of work and play. I just started working at this company. But my first day of work at WeWork, it was so funny. I was getting ready to move to New York, and I get an email from the company saying, "Hey, I know you're supposed to start work August 10th, but any chance you'll start August 22nd and just go straight to London for this thing called summer camp?" And I was like, okay, this company not only wants me to start later, which totally in, but the first day is at summer camp. I knew nobody. I showed up, and it was just such an exhilarating, fun experience. And I was sitting amongst 4,000 other employees, and Adam Newman gets up on stage one of the days, and he starts talking about how to smile from within. He says, every single day, I want you to wake up and find a reason to smile from within. And at this point, I'm excited by life. I'm energized. It's my first job. And I'm like, awesome. Wow. Great. Smile from within. Let's do this. And then it hits me, and I'm sitting in the crowd and I'm looking around, and I'm kind of thinking, easy for you to say, Adam, like you've just built now, eventually it was, something billions of dollars worth of company. Like you're sitting on your high throne, like easy for you to say smile from within. But for the everyday person, like what do you do to smile from within? And his answer, so I raised my hand in front of 4,000 people and I asked this question. And his answer was very powerful and a belief that actually made me fall in love with Judaism in the first place. Is he said, listen, the day to day in life is supposed to push you and challenge you and give you obstacles. So it's not supposed to be that life is just easy all the time. Like that's the idea of, let's say, toxic positivity, where you're supposed to just be happy and things are positive and easy all the time. No, no, no. We can't, if that's our expectation of what a happy life looks like, a smile from within life looks like, we're in big trouble because things are going to go wrong all day long. He said, you think my life is easy up here? You find out later what was happening behind the scenes. But he says, you think my life is easy up here and it's just easy all day long? Of course not. I anticipate challenges. He said that his recipe for smiling from within every single day is actually Shabbat. He said, I know that for 5 to 6 days a week, I can be on and deal with any challenge and face any work challenge or personal challenge going on. I'm going, and I'm excited for those challenges. I'm excited to overcome them because one day a week, from sundown on Friday night to sundown on Saturday night, he puts it all down, leans back, and enjoys what he's created. Takes that time to disconnect from the physical world to connect within. I'm definitely expanding this a little bit with my own views, but something along the lines of this. And I sat down after he told that, and he said, "How many days have you worked at the company?" Like he loved the question. And I said, "This is my first day." And he said, "Wow." And it was just one of those really special moments in my life. So working at WeWork was fabulous. I met a lot of very cool people, a lot of cool companies that you find out about. And I learned a lot of skills. But over time, slowly but slowly, it started to be a little more toxic than I thought it would be. It was very early mornings, running the buildings, and late nights running the buildings. Plus, listen, it was work. Work will be work, especially a first job. So if you're out there and it's your first job and you don't like it, you're not alone. This is part of the process. And if I didn't have this time where I started to really very much so dislike my job, very strongly dislike, then I wouldn't appreciate what I do have now. So yes, I was waking up at a certain point at 5, 6 a.m. with tears in my eyes saying, how am I going to get through this day? And not that it was so hard, it just became extremely unenjoyable at a certain point. And that's okay. It's okay. It's part of my story. And there was a reason I was supposed to be there, of course. So if you're at that place where you're not enjoying it, it's okay. Can you relax into it more? And we'll discuss this in a second. Because again, I got to the place where I was so unhappy in my day-to-day. I felt so unfulfilled. I felt lonely and lost and alone in it and stuck. And it was a time, it was my early 20s, living in New York City, just moved here for the first time. Also some of the best memories in my life. And I think that's also a theme in my life. Like some of the hardest things that have happened to me, some of the hardest times in my life have been the biggest opportunity for growth and self-discovery and blessings to come from them. So I look back at even hard times and times that are hard but fun but hard with so much love and adoration for that version of myself during that time and the people in my life and the things that happened to me. So it's just a cool way to think about life even moving forward, thinking, I'm in a maybe tough moment, but I know I'm going to look back at this with adoration to this time, with love and respect to the version of myself right now for getting through it. So at this time, in my young 20s, living in New York City and starting to hate my job, going out late at night, as one will do when they move to New York City, and waking up early. So that good old anxiety in the morning doesn't help. And discovering that maybe I do want to find a relationship that is going to last the rest of my life. And what does that look like? And I'm watching my parents' relationship fall apart, but I know that I want one. And I I go to therapy once a week and I talk about the fact that, oh, maybe I don't have one because my parents did this to me. And that's why it must be that I am this way, that I must not find a relationship and I'm kind of screwed. Like that was a mentality. And in therapy, I respect so much. But I found that I got to a certain point with it where I was talking about my problems and I had no interest in my problems anymore. I hit a point that I only was interested in creating the life that I wanted to live as to why I am where I am today. So I was at this point living in New York City and waking up every day, wanting a relationship. I had one very long relationship from freshman year of high school for ongoing. And it's a person who I respect so much. And we were very much so each other's comfort, blankets, and crutches and best friends. And we served such a beautiful purpose in each other's lives. But in the end of the day, looking back on it, just wasn't the one. It wasn't the person that we were going to grow together and build a strong foundation together. And the pain of leaving a relationship like that behind is very, very, very real and very strong. But in the end of the day, when you're looking for a relationship, you're looking for a person to build a foundation, to build a home and a family. And there's, listen to our podcast if you want to know how that happens and what to look for and how to find it and how to keep it. But you're looking for one person. And then when I wasn't with that one person, that were the relationship, I also had other times where, I was dating guys and they liked me and I didn't like them, or I liked them and they didn't like me, and I got ghosted a few times. Like I hit all of the boxes. I checked all of the boxes for the dating. And I would go out at times when I started to feel not so great about myself. When I was getting to the office and to pass the day, I would just kind of pick up some food and eat and eat and eat. And just from that place of, I needed to fill a void in me. I was feeling such a lack in so many areas of my life, which is very normal in the transition from college to real life, because it's a very big transition. And there's a lot of transitions in life that people don't give enough weight to and understanding to. So I'm sitting there and trying to fill voids with food and starting to feel heavier energetically, physically. It wasn't anything crazy, just that low vibration heaviness. And I was passing the day and thinking about what guys I could find and talk to, and hopefully they'd reach out to me. And if they didn't, I'd feel worse about myself. So I'd eat more, and then I'd go out and they could sense that on me, because it's very obvious when somebody is not loving themselves and treating themselves with care and kindness and respect. And it makes a lot of sense. Your thoughts and your emotions are frequencies. And that frequency carries information, which creates your reality. So at the time, if I was so unhappy with my life and I wasn't liking my day-to-day and I wasn't treating myself right, and I was feeling down and sad and feeling like I didn't have all of these things in my life I wanted, because my parents were a certain way, because I was a certain way, because it just wasn't in my life right now, guess what happened? That carried information that created my reality to look a certain way. My reality started to look like what I was being. The way that I was my reality. And I love the saying of, you don't get what you want, you get what you are. So at the time, I was sitting at a frequency that was taking me through a lot of challenges that were teaching me things, but in a frequency that I didn't want to be at a certain point. So at this point, I was living a reality that I didn't realize at the point, but I was creating for myself, because I was experiencing who I was being. And I wanted a different experience, but I wasn't changing who I was being at the moment. And I remember I was at such a dark, deep place, such a anxious and frustrated and lost and confused place. I was physically heavier. I was energetically heavier. I was having maybe external fun. I was going out and having fun, but deep inside, I felt a lack of fulfillment. And I felt lonely. If you want to hear my actual words at the time, I think it's episode 3, where I read my journal of a year before I met Jonathan, when I just felt so down. I think I say something along the lines in the journal of, I feel so sad and I can't imagine a a guy looking me in the eyes and saying he loves me and holding my hand and giving to me. I just can't even imagine that being the case for me. And I say that I want a guy to make me feel good about myself because I don't feel good about myself. And that just makes no sense. Like, why would I want somebody to make me feel good about myself because I don't feel good about myself? But no one's going to want me if I don't feel good about myself. So what did I have to do? And I didn't realize was to start feeling good about myself. And I also, during this time, I would start asking people who were married. I was like, how did you do it? How did you meet your person? How did you know? And, the answers I would get were the ones I did not want, which were always like, when you least expect it, that's when it's going to happen. And I was like, okay, so I might punch you right now because I want it. So I'm supposed to not want it to get it because I want it. So that just makes no sense. It was my least favorite answer. Unfortunately, there's some truth to it. So we'll discuss that in a second. And fortunately, with the right tools, it is very easy to crack that code. And then when you least expect it, it happens. I've seen it way too many times, and it's part of my story. The other thing I would always get was when you know, you know. Another thing, I'd be like, okay, well, I have somebody that I've had a relationship for 10 years on and off, and I don't know. I know that I respect and love him. And then when I'm single, like we'd have breakups at times. And when I'm single, I go on dates with great guys, but I don't know. Like, how do you know when it's a person you're going to spend the rest of your life with? And they say, when you know, you know. And I wanted to punch them again. I'm like, how could this be the answer? It just makes no sense. Again, there is truth to it. And with the right tools, it makes perfect sense. So I hit a point where I was so down, so low, hated my job at the point, not liking myself, not liking my life. And I remember there was one night where all my friends were going out and I went to go put an outfit on. I tried outfits. I said, I don't look pretty in any of these. And when I go out, if a guy doesn't like me, I'm going to feel so bad about myself. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, what happened to you? So I decided not to go out that night. I was like, you're not going out because you can't find an outfit that you feel good in. And if a guy doesn't like you, you're not going to like yourself. This is not the way that you are going to live. So that low, low, low moment for me, that deep moment was a moment of transformation. And I decided whatever happens tomorrow, I'm waking up and I'm changing this. And this is not the way that I'm going to live. And I'm so excited. I turned that downward spiral immediately into an upward spiral just by saying, I'm excited to change it. I didn't have the answers. I knew nothing, but I knew that I was going to change it. Kind of the same way when I was looking for a job in college. I didn't know answers, but I just knew I was going to go and make something happen. So this was that moment for me. I knew I was going to go and make something happen in this moment. So the next day, I started to do some research, and I remembered that one of my friends had said to me recently that she had mentioned I should be a life coach, which is ironic because at the time I definitely was not teaching anyone how to live but I was still the type of person who would read a room and would know kind of what to say to people, how to pull them out of things. And it's just one of my superpowers that I'm gonna hold as mine. And for whoever's listening, you have incredible, amazing, massive superpowers. And if you haven't discovered them already, I'm so excited for you to discover them. And I do think you keep getting more and more and more. So much good is to come for you. So I had remembered my friend said to me, life coach. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then I thought about my rabbi, and I was no longer in Boston. So we still kept up, but not the same way. And I was like, he was that for me. So I went out and I went to find a life coach, and lo and behold, this amazing life coach comes my way. And it was our first time working together, and I didn't know what life coaching was, how it was structured. In the back of my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to a life coach for myself, but also maybe this is something I want to do. I don't know what force was telling me this, but there was something telling me to do it. So we start talking, and instead of a therapy session where I'm just telling my whole life story, we really just focused on where I was at in that moment. So she didn't even really care Like, of course, in the end of the day, we got to all this stuff. We did the digging, we shined light on all of the dark corners, and we made the room very bright. And I said, this is where I'm at right now in my life. And I said, this is where I want to be. And she said, great, this is what it's going to take to get you there. And it made so much sense. Everything just clicked. And at the time for me, what was happening was I was, like I said, sitting at a very low vibration. And so what I was at was matching me. And I wanted a new job and I would get rejected. And I wanted a relationship and I was getting rejected, not just from the guys who I liked, but also the guys that I didn't like were rejecting me. And I was a repellent to anything that I wanted to create in my life because I was down here at this super low vibration, and that's what was matching me. So she said, what you have to do is you have to get rid of everything that does not serve you. Anything that's holding you down at this low vibration, you have to let it go. You cannot bring in the new furniture until you get rid of the old. So the first thing we have to do is cleanse your life of everything that's not serving you. So what did I do? I went and I cleansed everything that I found wasn't serving me. At the time, it was dating was first and foremost. I realized that I was dating in a way that I wanted to meet someone to make me feel good about myself. I said, no. I don't want to meet someone in this state. I want to meet someone when I walk in the room and they go, that is your wife. That is your everything. That is your life. So I said, great, no more dating. I'm going to go out with my friends and I don't want to meet someone. Not right now. Not while I feel like this. Once I feel better, sure. But right now, I don't want to meet someone. That's the when you least expect it. Sorry to say. So I don't want to meet someone. Great. Social media. I just noticed that like the way I was watching it and looking at it, and it just felt like clutter in my life. I deleted it for probably a year and a half. Loved it. Would love to go back. Sorry to say, but not an option these days. And I love social media for interrupting with some positivity. So hope you guys like it too. But it was a very clean, happy life without it. So deleted my social media, the way I was eating, the food I was eating. It was the way though. It was the chips and the bagels and the sandwiches. And now I made pasta for dinner last night. I'm going to a pasta dinner tonight. I will have cookies and ice cream, but it's a place of wholeness and fullness. It's not coming from a place of lack. It's coming from a place of enjoyment, not filling up holes for myself. So I had a list of things that goes on and on of things that I had to get rid of in my life. And once I did that, first of all, the weight dropped like this. It was not meant to be there in the first place. And in a very healthy way. And my life started to turn around. And instead of waking up on a Sunday and lying in bed and ordering a bagel, which I love to do sometimes, but if it's every Sunday, that's not good. I'd get up and I'd go to the yoga class. And I'd go get some healthy food afterwards. And even just my day-to-day habits started to upward spiral. And it was different because I felt like I was doing it before, but there was just something different now. And this was right before Thanksgiving, whatever year it was. And January 15th, I met Jonathan. So it's exactly what we can do the math, but I think about 6 weeks after I started doing this work, I met Jonathan. And again, like I said, I was in the state in my life where I said, I do not want to meet someone when I feel this way. I'm in LA visiting home and I get a call from my friend, Andrew Arie, who we will also have on the podcast soon. And he says, I need to set you up with my cousin. And I said, it's not the right time. I'm so sorry. Reach out to me in a little bit. But right now I'm taking a little pause on dating. He said, no, Remi, I adore you. And I really see this being a thing and working out. You need to go on a date with my cousin. And I said, okay, fine. I respect that. I love it. I'm not going to say no this much, but clearly it didn't take that much convincing. But I said, great, put us in contact and we'll see. And first date with Jonathan was so different than my other dates. I showed up with, he'll tell you, he calls them my Michael Jackson baggy pants and my baggy sweatshirt, like literally everything that Jonathan doesn't like now, but whatever. And I had no expectations and I was in a state of surrender and openness and no pressure, just kind of deciding, you know what, pause, I'm enjoying my life. That's all I'm going to focus on is recalibrating and enjoying and no pressure. And for many reasons, on top of us just enjoying being together and similar values, or very, very, very similar ones, probably same ones, and same visions for the future. And we sat and it made sense. And he likes to say, when it's right, rather than when you know. But something made a lot of sense. From that point on, obviously, there were ups and downs, and he threw me for some loops. So it wasn't smooth sailing. Never was this just like a clear water, no bumps, and everything going well. There were ups, there were downs, there were rounds. Like the beginning of dating Jonathan, I was an emotional roller coaster, but my state of being was, I'm okay if he's here, and I'm also okay if he's not here. If he's the one, great. I happen to really, really, really like this guy, really connect with him, and I would love for him to be my husband for many of reasons. But if he's not, I also know that I'm okay and that what's meant for me is right around the corner. So even though I was emotional and I had the highs and I had the lows and I was nervous of messing it up and I was nervous of committing and I had all of the things. Like, by no means was I sitting there like a guru meditating, although I started meditating a lot during this time, and I was journaling and I was doing the things, and I just had this sense of self that I had never had before. So Jonathan and I, through a series of fun events, start dating, and we start dating seriously. And from that point, and if you listen to episode 3, it goes quick. From the day I met him to the day we were engaged was 1 year. Then we got married 9 months later, and it goes on like that. So if you were also in a state in your life where you're like, counting the days and the months and the years of, oh my God, it's not going to happen for me, and I'm going to be 80 and single, obviously I'm exaggerating, but like if you're in that state, you're like, it's impossible, this is not happening to me. It happens in the blink of an eye. So I always like to say, this is kind of my story of giving you a crystal ball and saying, whatever you want is going to happen. It's going to work out. What are you going to do between now and then? Are you going to sit and sulk that you don't have the life you want right now? Or are you going to enjoy yourself and pick yourself up every day and laugh and sing and be with your friends? And before you know it, what you're praying for right now will be yours. And I can almost guarantee you, because humans will be humans, you'll want the next thing and you'll want more. And we never really appreciate what we have. So during this time with Jonathan, as we started, I had such an emphasis on just enjoying my time and trusting the universe. And it really, really worked. So, the relationship progresses the way it does, not to bore us too much with it. And right around the same time of meeting Jonathan, I also had an opportunity fall in my lap, just the way the universe does. When you start to change your energy, the universe matches you. And there was a team that had just, started being built at WeWork in the headquarters that needed, I don't know how else to describe it besides like a happiness manager. Like, hello, here I come. So this opportunity comes falling on my lap, and it was a C-suite team that needed somebody to make sure everyone's spirits were high as they went and did these really big deals for a whole lot of money. So along comes Remi, and I'm like, great, you want someone to make you happy? I gotcha. And at the time with WeWork, this came with a few credit cards with a very high spending limit. And I was booking these amazing people. I have so much respect for all of them. Trips to Paris and Hamptons weekends and floor seat tickets to the best basketball games and Super Bowl. Like, it was very much so make everyone happy, be the one at, in HQ who's just like smiling and walking around. And it sounds insane. I think they called it department coordinator, but I don't think I did much of the coordinating. And it was really enjoyable, and the workload was much less. So as I'm starting this relationship with Jonathan, I'm working less hours with more enjoyable things to do and more time to focus on him. And by no means was this was given an opportunity that other people weren't. It had to do with me taking the right steps doing this work, changing my energy. And yes, an opportunity presented itself because of this. But I had been trying for so long, years, to get a new job. I had applied to every company ever and I got rejected from everybody. So this was a very fun opportunity for me to open up to these possibilities. And then lo and behold, what happens? Unfortunately for WeWork, the company takes a little deep dive. It was that whole time is a crazy, crazy, crazy time, crazy story. And they didn't want to fire me, I guess, but I couldn't be doing the same role I was doing before. So just to think of it this way, my credit cards were chopped up at the company because no more spending when the company was at a really crazy point. If you don't know the WeWork story, again, highly recommend going to learn about it, watch about it. There's a lot of good information. So I had a bunch of free time on my hands because I would say to my boss, I don't have so much to do right now. Like, I'm kind of sitting around. How can I help you? And he said, the best thing you can do right now is to be patient. And I said, great. I'm more than happy to be patient and to be the smiling face in the office when you need me. And so it sounds also kind of crazy, but this is the way it happened. And that gave me the opportunity. Now, after starting to do this work, as I said, that the way I was made up from my childhood to my challenges to my personality to my experiences to so many things in my life, it got me to this one point where I was at a transition point and I had a lot of time and space to figure out what I wanted to do with my life next. And I thought, should I apply to new companies in case this WeWork thing doesn't work out? Or do I want to start my own thing? Like, what do I want it to look like? So that is when with that magic help from the universe, something dropped into my head that said, you must be a life coach. So I started my certificate program, and I would do that, throughout the day. Just when I didn't have anything to do, I'd be at the office and getting certified as a life coach. And then I started to just tell people, I said, hey, I'm life coaching at the time. And I still love this, but people who are graduating from college and entering the next stage in life and that transition, like, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? So as I just started talking to people about it, opportunities arose like this. And I started to see clients after work hours in WeWork offices in the conference room. So I'd book out conference rooms after hours and I would see amazing clients. So I was very crafty and the same mentality that I've said before, I just knew I was going to get it done. I knew that if I put my mind to this, I would be successful. I would build a business. Each step would unfold and rejection and failure were not rejection and failure. That they were just learning curves and pivots and that amount of resilience to know the why of what I'm doing. I wanted to help people. I wanted to take all of this knowledge and I studied a lot and I read a lot and I listened to podcasts and did programs. And I was like, you know what? I'm going through this myself. So by no means was I at a perfect place. No one ever is. We're still going, but I want to share this with other people and get to guide them through something that I've been guided through. And so I was seeing clients, everything was going great. And then what happens next? COVID hits. And at that time, online businesses, it wasn't like so much of a thing. So I'm like, oh shoot. Okay. So no more life coaching because I can't see my clients anymore. So pause that, hop into COVID. And, Jonathan and I, we made it as fun as we could. So we did have some really good times, him and I, during COVID. Obviously it was a scary, sad time for the world too, but we got very into running together and it was a fun time for us. So during COVID, still working at WeWork, I start these groups. My dad is in an organization called YPO, Young Presence Organization, and they have something called forum groups. And forum groups were like my childhood. I knew my mom and dad, they always went to their forum groups and it just kept them going. My dad says it's the stickiest part of YPO because it's 6 men or 6 women. They might do co-ed, but I'm not sure. My parents do 6 men, 6 women. And they meet once a month and they have a very structured meeting as to kind of like life skills and counsel, those things I was telling you about before, where you analyze your life in a very happy, emotional way to make sure you are where you want to be, and if you're not, how to get there. So it was these amazing forum groups, and then they go on trips together and do deeper dives, and just a way, if you don't stop and look at your life, you're going to miss it. So I started to do these really just for fun. I called it the Levy, and where Levy by Remi comes from. And I had 200 people sign up like this. And we did these Zoom calls once a month during COVID, and I would run them. And it was the same group of 6 people, and they were really magical, really, really cool. I was like, okay, so maybe I should start charging for this. When I got to that point, I had no business plan. I had no foundation of it because I was just doing this for fun. And over time, just, my husband sat me down with the numbers. He was like, I don't know if you can show up to every single one of these meetings and if this makes sense and how are you going to do this? So, I could have thought of this at the time of a failure, but I was like, okay, so, I put all this effort into it. I built this, all these people. Accountability started to be hard once on a Tuesday night, people could go to a restaurant and not be on Zoom. A lot of people would do that. So I could have seen this moment for myself as a failure. I just failed being a life coach because we can't do it in person. And I just failed because I built this thing with 200 people and now I'm just stopping it overnight. And I didn't. I was like, great, there's so much information in both of these places to use to build something great. So we were also planning our wedding at the time. We got engaged right before COVID hit. We got engaged January, COVID hit in March. And so I took a pause to do that. I ended up on one of those big calls at WeWork, get let go with wonderful severance. So it was totally fine. And then it hit me in 2020. After our wedding, I said, I want to go back to this life coaching. I want to go back to the one-on-one. I'm going to hop on Zooms with people. I'm going to do the same thing I was doing before. And I want to change people's lives. And I had been doing so much work on myself at this point with my life coach, who I will have for the rest of my life. I think life is too hard to do it alone, honestly. You're in the middle of it. It's impossible. How are you supposed to know what to do? You need someone's guidance. So at the time I said, I'm launching an Instagram. I don't know how, why, what, or when is going to happen, but this is what I'm going to do. And I launched Levy by Remi because I was like, the Levy, that's cute. Okay, what about Levy by Remi? Fun fact where Levy came from. It was one of those nights, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I came up with Capsule before Capsule came out. Sorry to say, I came up with, I always wanted to make an equinox for your mind. The Wells there, Sage and Sound, like these awesome places. I come up with an idea. I can't sleep for 5 nights in a row and I'm writing all of my thoughts down. And it's the life of a serial entrepreneur. Thanks, Dad, for giving me that one. It's fun, but it's tiring, and it's fun, but tiring. So I came up with the Levy because I loved the idea of living from your heart, which in Hebrew, the word for heart is lev. And I just was like playing around with it. And I was like, what if you could live with heart? So I Levvi, switched the I and the E, and it says live. I just added the extra V for fun. So it's really about like living from heart, living your life with love. And I have a program called Feel Love Now, which I can tell you about in a second. So it's really about loving your life, loving yourself, and an unconditional love. And to live in that state is when everything flows perfectly. So I started an Instagram called Levy by Remi, and I put up one post. And mind you, at this time, I had already deleted my Instagram for a long time, like I told you at the beginning. I never posted stories. I didn't use Instagram so much. I had no idea what I was doing. So it wasn't like I was, a professional at all of these things. And I waited until it was perfect to make something happen. I just showed up and I said, how scrappy can I be? Like, can I make a website? Okay, great. I got COVID for 10 days. I was sitting at home, and this one you were like really quarantined. So what I do, I pulled out a computer and I figured out how to use Wix, and I built a website. So now I've got an Instagram. The minute I posted my Instagram, I also did something very intuitively where I visualized clients coming in. I didn't know who they were. I didn't care who they were. I didn't care if I asked people to be a client and they said no, because then I knew it wasn't them. So I'd visualize the perfect people coming to me at the perfect time, and I knew it would happen. The second I posted my Instagram, I had clients. And from that day until now, which has been many years later, I have never had a lull in clients. only when I gave birth and I said, I'm done. And then I came back and I didn't know how I wanted to start again, and someone comes again. But if you are in the flow of your life, if you're doing what you are meant to be doing, the universe will bring what's meant for you. And especially if you're doing it for a greater cause. So I find in my business, when I'm ever focused on the business part of it and trying to get clients and trying to get this, I am in deep trouble. But when I sit back and my life coach helps me so much with this, and I say, how can I help one person today? And how can I shift the energy of the world in one way? Clients come out of every corner and are like running towards me. It's really amazing. So really the universe just started to unfold in front of me, and I continued to come up with ideas and fail and succeed and fail and succeed, and one after the next, and turning and moving. And I launched an online program that didn't do very much. I pivoted a bunch of times. And actually what I found to be the most helpful in the end of the day is once I was able to build a foundation, my one-on-one program was going strong, and I saw these massively incredible results for people. And I wanted to help more and more and more people. I found that getting a business coach, because I think coaching for everything, I would have a motherhood coach, a marriage coach, a life coach, a business coach, someone to help me pick outfits coach. Like, I'm all about the coaches. I think that having someone in your corner just makes things happen much quicker, honestly, and more efficiently. And once I finally found that a business coach is extremely helpful, that instead of throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks, I got a very tried and true method that has been outstanding. And that is where Feel of Now comes in. And it's an incredible program that people change their lives like this. And I love watching it. So this is where I'm at, where I've given all of my love and energy to a business that hopefully helps a lot of people all the time. I've built a relationship, because relationships are work, with an amazing person who I miss having next to me on this podcast. I'm sure you guys miss him too. He's a fun time. And we've now built, thank God, this home with our baby, who is everything and more. And one second. Yeah?
Hey, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you want to be on the podcast now?
I'm not part of this podcast. I was in the area, so I figured I'd pop in. But I just wanted to tell you I love you so much.
Hello.
I wanted to tell you that thank you for sharing your beautiful gift with so many people, helping so many lives. Everybody loves you. I've personally read or heard you read 100 testimonials, thank yous, or love letters, or love, like 100-page love letters. Just thanking you for making them stronger, making them a happier person inside. And it's almost as though they owe you their life, and they're a whole new person, all because of you and your gift. So thank you for sharing your gift. Thank you for being you. I love you. And I'll go back to work now.
Oh, I was just saying I liked you too. Okay, well, that was Jonathan. So thank you. And where I was, nobody knows. But this is where I'm at, and building with that crazy man who just came running in a life that is full and freedom-based, and the ability to be a mom, because that was a non-negotiable to me. My mom was a full-time mom and still is, and is everything and more to me. And to have a loving relationship, and to have friends, and to have time for myself. And it's not easy. It's one of those motherhood things that you just feel like you can never get everything done. And you didn't do enough. But there are things to go into place to really optimize it, and to live with ease and grace and love and fulfillment and meaning, and just creating the life you want to live. So my last piece of advice, just to leave you with today, is if you aren't where you want to be in life, if you sit back and wait for your life to change, you might be waiting a little bit longer. But if you kind of hack the system and start to change yourself, Start to realize the things that future version of yourself is doing, the things she cares about, how she shows up in the world, and the things that excite her and wake her up in the morning, and how she acts and how she thinks and how she talks. If you can get to know that version of yourself who already has this life you want to live, and start to borrow from her, start to do the things that she does. So if you're feeling, just because we are talking about my business today, if you're feeling a lack of fulfillment in your day-to-day, a great recipe for that is to look at challenges you've been through, because usually you go through them to do something with it, maybe to help people, maybe to, do something, but maybe challenges you've been through, things you like to do, things you're good at. Those are blessings and gifts you've been given. Things that the world needs, like looking at that, really focusing the most on things that fill you up. Go do a whole lot more of those and see how opportunities start to arise from it. But also gathering information from this future version of yourself, again, of how she thinks, how she feels, how she acts, and start doing it. And then just tell yourself and tell the universe that you are so certain it is going to work out. You don't know how. The same way as I knew I was going to get a job after college, and I didn't know how, but I knew I was going to make it happen. I didn't know how I was going to be a life coach and what the path was going to be, but I knew I was going to. All of these aspects, like, it's going to happen. You're like, it's that lucky girl, whatever they call it on TikTok. But like, if you say every single day, it's happening. This is happening. Whatever follows I am comes to find you. So what you want to see in your life, start saying it, start acting like it, start getting into that energy, and really just watch as it unfolds so perfectly for you. The answers unfold, the path forward unfolds, everything unfolds perfectly. And before you know it, you're living your dream life. It's really, really cool. So I'm so excited for all of you out there who are listening to this and who have these big dreams and big goals to achieve it. I'm so excited to see the amazing things you do. And as always, as you always know, please reach out to me if you have questions on how to achieve it, because this is my obsession and I would love to guide you through it. So thank you so much for listening to this episode about me, but hopefully it is all about you and how to create your dream life. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you liked it as much as we did. Now go send it to someone who needs to hear it, because we know that dating, relationships, marriage can be tough, but we want to make it less tough. And remember, you're allowed to hate your husband. Whatever you're feeling is allowed. So go send it to a friend, to your sister, your brother, maybe your boyfriend, a husband, whoever needs to hear this, send it to them. And while you're at it, click the follow button, click the review button. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we're so excited to see you in our next episode.